Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, they handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, David Cay Johnston, are you there?
I sure am.
David, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been 4 years. Things have changed quite a bit. Can you remind the audience, though, who is David Cay Johnston?
Well, I am the journalist who has covered Donald Trump longer than anybody else since 1988. I was the second serious journalist to get on to who he really is after my friend, the late, great Wayne Barrett. And I've written two international best-selling books about him, The Making of Donald Trump, which came out before the election, and tells you about things like his stunningly deep entanglements and extraordinary favors for a major international cocaine trafficker, his history of cheating and lying in business, his 2 trials for tax fraud that he lost. These were civil, not criminal trials, but they were tax fraud trials. He lost them both. And many other things that the mainstream press pretty much hasn't dealt with. The New York Times, where I worked for many years as an investigative reporter and specialist in taxes, has mentioned the drug dealer only in passing, and it was in, I kid you not, the Sunday weddings announcement section. And then I wrote, it's even worse than you think what the Trump administration is doing to America, which is about his performance in office. And I run a nonprofit news service together with former masthead editors at the Los Angeles Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. It's called DC Report, DC like District of Columbia, or David Kay, dcreport.org, singular, not plural. And we have broken there just scores of stories that the mainstream media picked up on days, weeks, months, and in one case, 3 years after we broke the stories.
You know, David, it must be kind of bittersweet for you, because what happens now? We have an election coming up. What do your personal, you've been more busy in the past 4 years probably than ever in your life, right? You're renowned expert.
Well, certainly more than I expected to at my age. I'm
right.
71.
Oh, 71, really? Well, you look great. What are you rooting for, you know? Trump to stay in, or are you tired? You want to take a couple of years off? What do you...
Well, I mean, Donald Trump should never have held any public office. He's the 3rd generation head of a 4th generation white collar crime family. You know, American law, unfortunately, doesn't properly address white collar crime. We know how to deal with people who hold up a bodega with a pistol or break people's legs when they don't pay back loan sharks, but people who do what the Trumps do, they steal with contracts, they corrupt politicians, they collect welfare. Donald Trump's one of the biggest welfare kings in America. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that I've documented of government welfare he's collected. Our laws don't deal well with this, and there are whole books about, you know, why people are able to build up huge fortunes and get away with it, not pay their taxes, not just by me, but by a number of other people. And it's because our law enforcement priorities are all wrong. We spend fortune in this country, for example, having uniformed police drive around in squad cars, and we know from studies that were done almost a half century ago that they have zero impact on crime. Zero. None whatsoever. It's just a complete waste of money, but we have this idea that makes us safe to see a police car going down the street with a uniformed cop in it. And in addition, Donald Trump doesn't know anything. And my favorite story about that is there are at least 23 subjects on which Donald Trump has proclaimed to be the world's #1 expert. I mean, just the number alone tells you it's silly, but one of them is taxes. Now, I'm a world-recognized expert on taxes. I've lectured on taxes at major universities and other institutions on every continent but Antarctica, where there are no major universities or institutions, right? Donald said no one in the history of the world knows more about taxes than Donald Trump. So under oath, he was once asked, well, what do you know about accounting? I don't know anything about accounting. You don't know anything about accounting? No, I leave that to the accountants. I don't know anything about accounting. You sure? You know, you don't have a basic understanding? I don't know anything about accounting. Accounting and tax are so interrelated that would be the equivalent of my telling you, Ed, the following. You know, Ed, you probably didn't know this, but I'm the world's greatest airplane designer. You know, the Aleutian, Boeing, those folks, they got nothing on me. By the way, Ed, what's a wing? It's just a con job. He's a con artist. And he, you know, he just today, the New York Times has a story by a really excellent reporter I've known since he was an intern, Julian Barnes, about the fact that Trump has completely stopped taking his national security briefings. We spend $110 billion a year on national security, and the most expensive newspaper in the world is the Daily Presidential Brief. And Donald Trump doesn't take the briefings, and the reason is he doesn't understand them. He has no idea what they're talking about. Donald does not know a Sunni from a Shia in the Muslim world. Now, I don't expect most Americans to know a Sunni from a Shia, but if you're the President of the United States, you damn well better know exactly what that means, because it's fundamental to the national security of the United States.
David, let me ask you this. It came out recently in the New York Times that over 10 years, he's declared income of $267 million due to written-off debt. He's had creditors and vendors and stuff like that. He stiffed them, and it's recorded now as income. Now, why isn't that looked at as a pattern of fraud?
Well, it should have been. We are running a series right now at DC Report about this very issue. The first piece just went up, and there are several issues that happen here. First of all, understand that pursuing tax criminals has always been a minor operation of the U.S. government. In the peak years, the government never sought more than about 2,500. The IRS never went and asked the Justice Department for more than about 2,500 referrals. In the last 12 months, the Trump administration, based on its own data from the Justice Department, has brought 29 new cases. And it appears that, we don't know for sure, but based on past experience, it's likely that every one of those involves either drug trafficking or a politician who took bribes. And then there's auditing. We just reported that the official IRS annual report shows that in 2018, now that's the first full year Donald Trump was president, in 2018, among people who make more than $10 million a year, there's about 24,000 households in America that make over $10 million a year. They did 7 audits. Not 70 or 700, 7. However, if you're the working poor, and that group's average income is $12,600, and that's 50 million households, by the way. It's 1 out of 3 households in America are working poor. If you're in the working poor category, you are 9 times more likely to be audited than if you make over $10 million a year. Now, who do you think is going to be the source of a lot of tax money the government isn't collecting? People who make $1,000 a month, or people who make over $10 million a year, and their average, by the way, is $30 million they report. So the Trump administration has fundamentally stopped enforcing the tax laws. The number of IRS requests for prosecutions has fallen more than 90% under Donald Trump. I think it's 94.6%. And there's never been a serious, large-scale effort appropriate to the size of the thievery going on among the richest Americans. But under Trump, they've just, for all practical purposes, they've stopped enforcing the tax law.
Well, how can that be? He's the law and order president.
Well, he's a con man. He can tell you anything he wants to hear. He'll tell you he's the world's greatest expert on 23 subjects. He'll tell you he is he's literally claimed, he's the greatest lover of all time. Something a few women, including Marla Maples, when she appeared on the show Designing Women, made very clear ain't true.
David, let me ask you this.
The woman who was suing him over his raping her, E. Jean Carroll, in her article about it, had what I thought was probably the most damning thing a man can hear. She said, I wasn't sure if he was in me.
Just horrific. David, now, during the last debate, he makes this declaration that he's been prepaying his taxes. Did you fall off your chair when you heard that?
Yes, and I can explain to you what he means by that.
Go ahead.
Donald is subject to something called the alternative minimum tax, and it comes in 2 flavors. The flavor most of us know are people who make more than $75,000 a year who own their own home and who have 3 or more children. And particularly if you make over $100,000 a year, you probably, under the alternative minimum tax for the last 30 years, did not get to deduct yourself as an exemption, your spouse, your children. You couldn't take your property taxes. All of that was stripped away under a law that Ronald Reagan signed in 1986. Then in 1991, Donald Trump lobbied Congress for a change to allow owners of commercial real estate to deduct their paper losses, and I'll explain that in a second, against their other income. So if you own a lot of buildings, and Donald Trump did at one time, you get to write down the value of them, because just like your car wears out and a machine wears out, in theory a building wears out. And so you write off part of the value of it each year. The standard is you write off about 3.5% a year, but there's ways under which you can write off all of it immediately. And so let's say you have depreciation, you have real estate that you rent out, and you're able with depreciation to show you lost $100 million. Then you have other businesses you made a profit from of $99 million. Net result, you pay no taxes. You show a negative income. And Donald Trump has been reporting negative income since the 1970s, something I documented in my book, Temples of Chance, way back in 1992. So when Donald Trump says, I prepaid my taxes, what he means is I paid alternative minimum tax one year, and then I get it back later, because that's how, for real estate people, not for mom and dad with the 3 kids and who own a home, but for real estate people, if you pay the alternative minimum tax, it is refundable to you in future years. Now, you may recall that 3 years ago, I got Donald's 2005 tax return. We published it at DC Report. A lot of people wrongly think that Rachel Maddow got it. I was a guest on her show, and 9 times she said, we aren't breaking this story. David is just our guest. DC Report broke this story. And that return showed that Donald paid $31 million of alternative minimum tax. The refund fight he's having is he got that money refunded, and then we don't know what happened, but somebody in the government said, wait a second, that doesn't look like a proper refund. And they've been fighting over that. He doesn't want to give the money back. What Donald really is talking about when he says I prepay my taxes is I paid this tax, I get it back. The way to think about that is it's a zero-interest loan to the government. If you had to give the government, Ed, tomorrow $10,000 on your taxes and you got it back next year, what have you really done? Did you pay $10,000 in taxes? No, you loaned the government $10,000 at zero interest for 1 year to the next. The opposite is, by the way, how people like Donald Trump get welfare. They defer paying a tax. So they owe, let's say, $10 million of tax. They are able, through accounting, to delay paying the tax for 30 years. Well, now you have a loan for $10 million at zero interest for 30 years. And if you invest that money wisely, when the 30 years is up, you'll pay the tax, and you'll have more money in your pocket, far more money, than if you had paid the tax originally. You will literally turn the burden of an income tax into a profit because of the value of that zero interest loan.
Gotcha. Hey, let me ask you a question. That $70 million refund, do you think he's going to have to pay that back?
Probably. It's astonishing that this continues to be negotiated behind closed doors, that it's gone on for years. Nothing's going to happen while he's in office. The bureaucrats at the IRS are just like the bureaucrats everywhere else. They're just like your local police. If the local police chief says, I want you to make sure that if any city council member's teenage son or daughter is drunk, that you bring them home and you don't arrest them. You know what? That's what the cops will do. And the IRS people are doing the same thing. In fact, a story we broke a year ago called the Koch papers, Koch, as in the Koch brothers.
Yeah.
The third Koch brother, who's estranged from the other two, one of whom has since died. The third Koch brother lives one house away from Mar-a-Lago. He has an annual income of over $100 million a year. He was under criminal investigation by the IRS as a tax cheat. We have an email proving that. And as soon as Donald Trump took office, the investigation of William Ingraham Koch, known as Bill Koch, stopped. Bill Koch was the only Koch brother to support Donald Trump. And I don't think Donald Trump interfered. I think IRS managers were smart enough to say, we're not going to make ourselves unnecessary trouble by going after Donald's friend, neighbor, and supporter here. And it's an outlandish thing he's doing, by the way. Bill Koch is in the business called Pet Coke, P-E-T, like your pet animal, for petroleum, and then Coke with a small c, C-O-K-E, like is used usually from coal to make steel. You put coal, you turn it into what's called coke, and you mix it with steel, with iron, and you get steel. Well, he makes the same thing, only instead of from coal, it's from oil. And his operations are in the port of Long Beach, California. And what he did was begin declaring that he actually was in business in Nassau, the Bahamas. He rented a 1,200 square foot storefront in a shopping center there and sent 3 employees out of his several hundred employees over to the Bahamas. And then he declared that the money that he makes every year, that you and I would call a profit, was actually a new capital contribution to the business. Capital contributions, that is your savings that you now invest in a business, that's not taxable. And he's been collecting over $100 million a year, paying no taxes. We did a 5-part series about this, and I will tell you, interesting thing about Bill Koch, who's a libertarian, he has a reputation for suing people. But he only sues people who cheated him, like the guy who sold him bottles of wine for $200,000 that were not, special 18th century wines that were worth a lot of money. They were modern wines he put into these old bottles. He had not one negative word about our reporting on him, and they didn't challenge a single fact. But he should be under criminal investigation. Hopefully, when we get a new administration, and assuming we do, which we may not, he will come under criminal investigation again.
David, we have these billionaires, these one percenters, Bezos and Microsoft, Bill Gates, these characters, and they have these elaborate schemes and armies of tax attorneys and accountants. Does the IRS have the same kind of firepower to investigate and look over their returns, even cursory?
No.
Yeah.
No, Ed. In fact, the IRS told Congress, I think it's 10 years ago now, we don't, it must have been more than 12 years ago because I left the New York Times 12 years ago. We don't have the firepower to deal with the tax shelters that I had been revealing. I was called by one of the most prominent business professors in the country, the de facto chief tax enforcement officer of the U.S., because I was exposing all these tax shelters, some of which the IRS, as best we know, didn't know anything about and certainly wasn't doing anything about until I wrote about them. And they don't have the resources. And one of the best ways to avoid criminal indictment if you are playing games with the tax system is you show up at your meeting with your grade tax auditor who makes maybe $80,000 to $120,000, and you fill the room with 12 lawyers in $4,000 suits and a half a dozen accountants and a couple of secretaries, and you mau the poor little civil servant. And by the way, a lot of people at the top pay the taxes they're supposed to pay. Okay. I have, under confidentiality agreements, seen the tax returns of some of the people you mentioned, and they look perfectly appropriate to me. They don't need to cheat because there are such lawful ways to avoid tax. And I'll give you a simple example. If you borrow money, as long as you pay it back, it's not income. So I don't have enough money to do this. But if I were Jeff Bezos with, what is his fortune now, approaching $200 billion, and what's he going to spend on his lifestyle, even with his private jet and his mansions and as we now know, girlfriends, you can't spend more than some millions of dollars a year on your lifestyle. It's just not possible. I've sat down with all sorts of people and gone over trying to do this. I used to play a game we called Wretched Excess about consumption of income. So a guy like Bezos can borrow against his portfolio of stock. He'll pay a place like Goldman Sachs, where he used to work, 1%, and then he has no income. He just has debt. This is what Howard Hughes did way back in the 50s. Howard Hughes, to the tax man, appeared to be impoverished, but he lived this incredible lifestyle because he just borrowed against his assets. And if the value of your assets is growing faster than you're consuming plus interest, you get richer and richer by never having any income. And the lowest tax rate you can pay on capital in the U.S. is 15%. If you can borrow 1%, why in the world, if you could afford to do it, would you do anything but borrow against yourself? Now, of course, Congress can stop this, but people don't understand it, so they let it go on. They say, oh, that's not income.
Hey, David, I do want to caution people, the average person out there making $35,000 a year, they should not try to mislead the IRS, right? Because they will get investigated.
No, yeah, that's right. And one of the things we reported in our series is this. Remember I said there were 7 audits of the 24,000 families who make over $10 million a year. But there's 50 million families who make less than $25,000, and their average income is half that. So they make a little over $1,000 a month on average. They are 9 times more likely to be audited by the IRS, and the IRS is pretty nasty with those folks, and it has a tool it can apply that will hurt you for 10 years if you play games with them. Now, this was the result of a deal that Newt Gingrich, who you may recall was Speaker of the House for 2 years back in the 90s, and Bill Clinton made. And it was a terrible deal. The only area where the IRS in the last 30 years has gotten increased money to audit is the working poor. And almost all the audits of the working poor turn out to be disputes between estranged couples over who gets the earned income tax benefit or the deduction for their children.
That's heartbreaking.
That's almost all of those cases.
That is heartbreaking. Can you imagine?
And it is because of the Republicans and their friend Bill Clinton, who was, I call Republican light, as
Sure.
in light beer, L-I-T-E. The Republican light Bill Clinton, who did this, and it was just monstrous and horrible. And the Democrats have not had any spine about taxes ever since Grover Norquist turned tax into the most vile 3-letter word in America.
David, we have to take a commercial break, but in your expertise, how much money do you think we're leaving on the table by not going after these billionaires? And just fairly.
We're leaving, just let me give you one killer number that's also in our piece. During the closing years of the Obama administration, 1 million people who make over $200,000 did not even file a tax return. They owe $47.5 billion before interest and penalties, and the Inspector General says they're not going after any of them.
Fascinating.
That's just people who didn't file. Now add all the people who can afford armies of lawyers to avoid paying taxes. Oh, we could radically cut your tax burdens if you're an average American if we went after these people. And when we come back, I'll tell you about a way we could eliminate income taxes for everybody who makes less than $500,000 a year and make the country richer.
Oh, let's do that. We got solutions here from David Cay Johnston. Hey, DCReports.org. Is it report?
Report. DCReportSingular.org.
DCReport.org. And again, go to Amazon.com. Check out all his books. He's been writing these books for years, since 2005. It's even worse than you think what the Trump administration is doing to America. Perfectly legal. The covert campaign to rig our tax system to benefit the super rich and cheat everybody else. The making of Donald Trump, the one he's most famous for, I suppose. Free lunch. How the wealthiest Americans enrich themselves at government expense and stick you with the bill. And another one called The Fine Print, how big companies use plain English to rob you blind. We'll be right back with more of David Cay Johnston. And be sure to check out his blog here, dcreport.org. We'll be right back after these messages. More David Cay Johnston. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with David Cay Johnston from dcreport.org, which is his news service, and the author of many, many books. Check out on Amazon, especially the most recent ones, The Making of Donald Trump, and it's even worse than you think, what the Trump administration is doing to America. David, before the break, you were telling us about you have a plan where the average person would pay no tax. Go ahead.
Yes, if we had the French or German universal health care systems, and the French system is, every study I've ever seen says it's the best in the world. You get seen by a doctor there as quick or quicker than here in the U.S., and both the French and the Germans have better health status as a society than we do. If we have, and there's no out-of-pocket, nobody goes broke in those countries as happens in America over health care bills. There are no surprise bills. If we had either one of those systems, it would save 6% plus of our economy. Well, that's a meaningless number, right? Do you have any idea in your head what 6% of our GDP, gross domestic product, is?
No clue.
So let me give it meaning. It's equivalent to all the income taxes paid by everyone who makes less than $550,000 a year, which is into the top 1%. The 1% starts at about $500,000. So if we adopted the French or German healthcare systems, we would have universal health care. We wouldn't have people becoming prematurely disabled or unable to return to work because they got lousy medical care. We wouldn't have people dying prematurely for lack of medical care. We wouldn't have people going bankrupt because of medical bills. And we could eliminate income taxes for people who make less than $500,000 a year. Now, this is a statistical measure, but I think in the real world, once you take into account all the inefficiencies, we certainly could start the income tax at somewhere between $100,000 and $250,000.
You know,
and $100,000 would eliminate about 80% of taxpayers.
Another thing people always overlook, Medicare for All, it would lower our auto insurance, too, because now the auto insurance companies aren't paying medical bills. So
That's right, and it would also, let me tell you what else it would eliminate. You see people who are in some horrible industrial accident or, a piece of scaffolding falls off a building and hits them in the head, and they have these huge lifetime medical bills. And we have all this litigation over the medical bills. If we had universal health care, we as a society would just absorb that cost. Now, there's some minor moral risk that people will behave badly, not do things like maintain properly, sconce, whatever you call those, ornaments on buildings, for example, when you're walking in a city.
Sure.
But we can address that by just making those laws tougher. You didn't take care of this. You were told to fix it. You didn't fix it. You go to prison. No argument. There are other ways to address that. So, yes, Medicare for All is one way to do this. There are other ways to do this, but universal health care with no out-of-pocket expense would greatly benefit our economy. Now, I was the co-founder of a successful hotel management company with one of my sons. And when we started the business, I spent an enormous amount of time and reading and gathering documents, figuring out how to get health care. And I kept saying to myself, we're trying to run an efficient company serving customers. Why is it my business what the health status of my employees is? It's none of my business what church they do or don't go to, who they love, what car they drive, what party they register to vote in or don't. But their health status is my business. That's crazy. And if you're General Motors or General Electric, you're so big, doesn't matter. The health care costs you got are going to be whatever the social cost is. But if you're talking about a little tiny business like ours with $2 million, less than $2 million a year of revenue, it's a really big factor, and it limits small business. And the Democrats had a brain about this. They would be out there being the champion of small business, saying, we will get health care off your backs.
Yeah, but why do you think they don't? It's because they get the lobbyists from the insurance companies.
Well, partly, but also because there's this inherent knee-jerk suspicion of business by people who are Democrats, even the ones who are successful business people. It's just sort of like in their DNA, and they need to, just as the Republicans need to recognize that we're no longer a culture dominated by white men. They still don't get it, and it's been a half century now or more. In fact, almost 60 years since that started to change. The Democratic leadership, including people, like Nancy Pelosi's husband's a very successful businessman. She's in the $100 million class of wealth. They still have this sort of antipathy, and even if they don't have antipathy, they don't go around thinking about what can I do for the small business person who has 2 or 10 or 25 employees, many of whom don't make any more money than if they went to work as a job for somewhere else, but they want to be their own boss.
Right. Yeah, and it's 24 hours a day. You got nothing but headaches. But still, there's some people just got to do it. I've always been in business myself my whole life. One more thing I want to throw in there, too. The number one reason in this country for bankruptcy is medical bills, So we would eliminate that. And the number one reason for abortion is they can't afford to raise the baby. We could eliminate that with an increase in a living standard in this country. It's just heartbreaking, the whole thing. I was asking you during the commercial break, whatever happened to the Mueller investigation? He was going after Trump's tax returns. He was subpoenaing his accountant, his lifetime accountant. All these secrets were going to come out. What happened?
Well, the first thing that happened was that Bill Barr put out this completely false report that said Trump was exonerated. That a lot of people to this day continue to repeat. I actually read the 418 pages, and there are at least 10 crimes described in that report. And of course, Donald Trump is the co-conspirator in the crimes for which Michael Cohen went to prison. He's named as executive one or person number one. So if Michael Cohen belongs in prison, so does Donald Trump. But the other thing that happened is we now know, because Mueller's deputy, Andrew Weissman, spoke up, is that Bill Barr and Sessions instructed Mueller to read his charter extremely narrowly. So they didn't go into his tax returns. I don't know if they got them or not, but they did not investigate them. They did not in any way investigate the Russia connections. They only investigated if they lied about the Russia connections. And why did that happen? Well, Robert Mueller was a valorous Marine officer in combat in Vietnam. He was a federal judge. He's the second longest serving FBI director under both Democrat and Republican presidents. He served 10 years. He is a straight shooter. He is a Boy Scout. In fact, he is the Boy Scout in America. And so if his betters tell him, you can only look at this and you're to be blind to all of that, he would faithfully follow that directive. That's very bad for the country, unfortunately. Once Donald Trump is out of office, I think we'll begin to learn a lot more about what really went on and about how deeply Donald is entangled with the Kremlin, which has been courting him since 1987.
David, when I was researching your work on DCReport.org for this interview, I came across child sex trafficking prosecutions way down. Now, I remember seeing Acting Attorney General Whitaker, his testimony for Congress, where he said that sex trafficking cases, quote unquote, were up 5%. What did you find in your report?
Well, we now have the official government data, and it was predicted when we passed a new law about sex trafficking a few years ago that it would drive it even deeper underground. And so what's happened is the federal government is not seriously pursuing this. I mean, just all you have to do is look at the Jeffrey Epstein case. Here is this guy who made all this money, and I think there's good reason to believe a lot of it was made through blackmailing people who he provided young people to fulfill their sexual fantasies, young boys or young underage boys or underage girls, to various billionaires, and then got them to put a lot of money into his operation. I mean, this is a man who sent his private jet to France to pick up a bunch of 14-year-old girls and fly them to his private island in the Caribbean and have them have sex with older men, and then sent them back with, bought them a bunch of dresses and gave them money. And these were poor girls in broken homes. People who are looking for that sort of thing can always find it because that's the reality of who's out there. But nothing was done to go after Epstein. In fact, one of Trump's cabinet appointees was the U.S. attorney who signed off on this deal that gave him the most incredible sweetheart deal, 10 or 12 years ago, that he should have gone to prison for life for. So I'm not surprised by the report Jillian Ambrose, one of our reporters, wrote about this, but people don't know that because this is an administration that just keeps telling you things that are untrue. It's Donald Trump telling us that it's almost gone away. It's almost gone on the pandemic, when we just hit 100,000 cases in a day, the record in the whole world. And his son said, deaths are down to nothing on the day that we learned we had 952 deaths the day before. There's no connection between what the leaders of this administration say and reality in many, many cases. And that's what we've been documenting. The purpose of DC Report has been we don't cover tweets, we don't cover speeches, we cover what the Trump administration is doing to America. So when they adopt a regulation that allows polluters to dirty the air and water, or they give away land, or rig the electricity markets, that's what we write about. And we don't go to press conferences. We don't need access to government officials because what work we do is we do it from the government documents. The government has to, by law, produce all these documents that most journalists never look at. That's what we do. We just mine those documents. And the reason that the Washington Post and the New York Times and the LA Times and the Wall Street Journal are often way behind us is we dig something up, we report it, then some politician or one of the shows that I appear on brings it up, and then suddenly someone's announced it, and now they cover it. We don't operate by announcement or press release or speech. We operate by government document.
Yeah, and you got to be one of the hardest working reporters out there, especially the past 4 years. And I see it on TV like almost every day. I don't know how you do it. And you said you're 70 years old. Oh my God, you got a great constitution there, great fitness. Last time I had you on the show, we talked about Trump's helicopter pilot and the drug smuggling. Now, when I replayed it, I didn't even replay it. I just tagged it a few months back, and everyone listened to it for the first time, and they were shocked to hear this story. Can you give us a brief rundown on that short story?
Sure. Every casino in Atlantic City had to have a fleet of helicopters to fly high rollers in and out. And every one of them except Donald Trump went to well-established helicopter companies. Donald went to a company funded with a combination of dubious, by which I mean mob money, and New Jersey tax credits handed out by the state through very dubious means. And the guy who ran his helicopters and who personally flew Donald's helicopter, he called the Ivana back then, is Joe Wexelbaum. Joe Wexelbaum is a mob associate, two-time convicted felon, and he was running a massive international cocaine trafficking ring where the drugs from Colombia came to Miami, where he had an old fancy car dealership. You want to buy a 10-year-old Rolls Royce, that kind of place. And the drugs were driven up to Cincinnati to be distributed in Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Well, the DEA caught Joe. He's a two-time loser. So he confesses in writing to everything, almost. And the mules in his case were sentenced to 20 years in prison, just for driving the drugs, 20 years in prison. Joe asks if he can have his case transferred for sentencing to either New York City or Miami, because he has homes in those places. Instead, he's transferred to New Jersey, where no crime is alleged to have occurred, and his case is sent to the courtroom of Judge Marianne Trump Berry, Donald's sister, who was a newly named federal judge who got her job through the notorious Roy Cohn. Now, Donald's sister removed herself, it's called recusal, removed herself from the case after a couple of weeks. But imagine for a moment you are the chief federal judge in Newark, New Jersey. This newly appointed judge, Marianne Trump Berry, comes into your courtroom, into your chambers, and says, listen, I need to recuse myself from this case. Oh, all right, well, what's the grounds? Well, I fly in this guy's helicopters all the time. My husband flies in them several times a week. He's actually personally piloted me in my brother Donald's helicopter, the Ivana, many times. Can you imagine how terrified you would be that the newspapers would find out that you've got a sitting federal judge who's being flown around by one of the biggest drug traffickers in America? It was 7 years after this happened that my friend Wayne Barrett, the first reporter to get onto Donald Trump, dug this out. He got a tip about it, and he dug it out. And lo and behold, Donald Trump wrote a letter to the judge who was going to sentence after the case was removed from Judge Berry. And that judge, by the way, was the closest friend of Donald's sister on the federal bench in New Jersey. And she, in the letter, he said Joe Wexelbaum is a stand-up guy. He's a credit to the community. He shouldn't serve any time at all. And if you read the letter, which is quoted in my book, The Making of Donald Trump, and you know anything about law enforcement, as you do, Ed, you know that that letter says, keep your mouth shut and I'll take care of you. Well, he served 18 months, not 20 years, 18 months. When he got out, he said he had no money. He couldn't pay the $30,000 in fines he owned. And he moved into a multi-million-dollar double apartment in Trump Tower. He got really well taken care of for keeping his mouth shut.
Really unreported story. Nobody knows that story. And David Cay Johnston, you can find the making of Donald Trump.
Only time it's been in the New York Times, I kid you not, was a passing mention in the Sunday section where they announce weddings.
Okay.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
David, real quick, we only got a couple of minutes.
Yep.
Since the last time we talked, I have a daughter now. She's a sophomore at American University taking journalism and political science. What kind of advice do you have for a young journalism student?
You're not going to have the kind of career I did where you're well paid and have good benefits and can raise 8 children. However, if you are entrepreneurial and develop yourself, you can be fabulously successful and independent. The wealthiest journalist in the history of the world, working journalist, is Martha Stewart. I mean, her journalism area is home economics, but think about it. Every newspaper of any size has or used to have a whole food section. And she simply took that and ran with it. Well, water is going to be one of the biggest issues of the next 100 years. Energy, geopolitics, viruses. This is not the last pandemic we're going to have in the 21st century. You develop yourself as the expert on that, and develop yourself so that you have television programs you do, documentaries, magazine maybe, as Martha Stewart did, and you can have a tremendous impact. But it's only going to happen for people who are very entrepreneurial and become first-rate experts. If you want to be the world journalist on water, and I think there's room for 3 top-rate people, you're going to have to learn the chemistry of water, the biology issues, the energy issues of water. You're going to have to learn what's called patent law, which deals with land that's underneath water, water rights law. You got to learn everything. But if you become one of the greatest experts in the world on water, you can become incredibly successful and have a positive, enormous impact by telling people what they don't know, but they need to know to make intelligent decisions in democracies.
Excellent advice. David Cay Johnston, thank you so much. DCReport.org. And check out Amazon, all these books, even the old ones. It's even worse than you think. What the Trump administration is doing to America, perfectly legal, the covert campaign to rig our tax system to benefit the super rich and cheat everybody else, the making of Donald Trump, and free lunch, how the wealthiest Americans enrich themselves at government expense and stick you with the bill. And also the one about the fine print, how companies use plain English to rob you blind. David Cay Johnston, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, Ed.
Good night. And now a word from our sponsors. Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online, email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages. Create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com. 800-572-9762. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.